If you've ever been in a toxic relationship, you know how much damage it can do. It messes with your confidence, makes you question your worth, and leaves you feeling like a shadow of the person you used to be. And if you're here, I already know one thing. You're ready to take your power back. But here's the truth. Healing isn't about waiting for time to fix things. It's about action. It's about retraining your mind, rebuilding your self-worth, and learning how to trust yourself again. And guess what? You can do it. Because no matter how broken you feel right now, you are not broken. You are still you, strong, capable, and more resilient than you even realize. So today, we're going to talk about exactly how to heal, step by step. No fluff, no sugarcoating, just real practical ways to move forward and create the life you deserve. Let's get into it. Toxic relationships leave wounds that aren't always visible. They don't just hurt in the moment, they seep into your thoughts, your self-worth, and the way you see the world. The first and most crucial step toward healing is recognizing the damage and accepting reality for what it is. That might sound simple, but it's anything but easy. When you've been in a toxic relationship, your perception of what's normal gets distorted. You might find yourself making excuses for what happened, downplaying the pain, or even blaming yourself for the way things turned out. That stops today. You have to be brutally honest with yourself. A toxic relationship isn't just about fights or disagreements. It's about a pattern of control, manipulation, emotional abuse, or even subtle undermining that chips away at your confidence. Maybe you were constantly criticized, made to feel like you weren't enough, or gaslighted into doubting your own reality. Maybe you walked on eggshells, trying to keep the peace, while your needs, feelings, and voice were dismissed. Or maybe you felt trapped, like no matter what you did, you could never get it right. That kind of treatment doesn't just hurt. It rewires your brain to accept dysfunction as normal. One of the hardest parts of healing is breaking out of the denial that often comes with a toxic relationship. When you've invested time, energy, and emotions into someone, it's painful to admit that they weren't who you thought they were. It's even harder when they had good moments, times when they were kind, loving, or made you feel special. But a few good moments don't erase a toxic pattern. A person's true character is shown in how they consistently treat you, not in the rare glimpses of kindness between long stretches of pain. Accepting reality also means letting go of the hope that things could have been different. It's natural to replay situations in your head, wondering if you could have done something differently. Maybe if you had been more patient, communicated better, or changed in some way, things would have worked out. But the truth is, a healthy relationship isn't supposed to require you to shrink yourself, suppress your emotions, or constantly prove your worth. If you had to do any of those things, it wasn't love, it was control. And that's not on you. At this stage, it's common to experience a roller coaster of emotions. Anger, sadness, guilt, relief, it all comes in waves. Some days you might feel empowered and ready to move on. Other days you might miss them, despite everything they put you through. That's normal. Healing isn't a straight path. It's messy, uncomfortable, and filled with moments where you second-guess yourself. But no matter how many times your emotions pull you back, remind yourself why you left or why you need to. Write it down if you have to. Keep a list of every time they hurt you, manipulated you, or made you feel small. Not to dwell on the past, but to keep yourself anchored in reality when your mind tries to rewrite history. Another critical part of recognizing the damage is understanding how it has affected you beyond just the relationship itself. Toxic relationships don't just end, they leave behind patterns, beliefs, and emotional wounds that can show up in unexpected ways. Maybe you find yourself over-apologizing, doubting your decisions, or struggling to trust others. Maybe you feel anxious in relationships, constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. Or maybe you're hesitant to open up, afraid that if you let someone in, they'll hurt you just like before. These aren't flaws, they're scars. They're the evidence of what you survived. And the good news, once you recognize them, you can begin to heal them. One of the most powerful things you can do is shift your perspective from what's wrong with me to what happened to me. There is nothing wrong with you. You were treated in a way that caused harm, and your mind and body adapted to survive. But survival mode isn't where you're meant to stay. Recognizing the damage is the first step toward breaking free from it. It's the moment you take back control, not just from the person who hurt you, but from the thoughts, fears, and patterns they left behind. Healing starts with truth. The truth about what happened, the truth about how it affected you, and the truth that you deserve better. It won't happen overnight, and it won't always be easy. But the moment you stop making excuses, stop blaming yourself, and start accepting reality is the moment you begin to take your power back. And from there, everything changes. Walking away from a toxic relationship is one thing, but truly cutting off toxic ties and setting boundaries is another challenge entirely. When you've been emotionally entangled with someone who has manipulated, controlled, or drained you, breaking free isn't just about physical distance, it's about reclaiming your mental and emotional space as well. It's about recognizing that no matter how much history you have with this person, no matter how deeply you cared, and no matter how many times they've convinced you to stay, you owe it to yourself to stop giving them access to your life. The first step in this process is cutting off contact. This might feel extreme, especially if they've convinced you that you need them in some way. But if someone has been toxic to your mental health, keeping them in your life, even in small ways, can keep you stuck in old patterns. This means blocking their number, unfollowing them on social media, and resisting the temptation to check up on them. It's not about being petty. It's about protecting your peace. Every time you leave a door open, you give them an opportunity to manipulate their way back in. Toxic people thrive on keeping a connection, even if it's just to send a casual text or comment on a post to remind you they're still there. That tiny bit of contact can pull you back into old emotions, making you second-guess your decision and reopening wounds that were starting to heal. Of course, cutting ties isn't always as simple as blocking a number, especially if you share a workplace, CO parent, or have mutual friends. In these cases, boundaries become your greatest tool. Boundaries are not about controlling someone else's behavior. They are about deciding what you will and won't tolerate in your life. This means limiting interactions to what is necessary, keeping conversations strictly about logistics if needed, and not engaging in emotional discussions with them. If you have to communicate, do it with clarity and detachment, no justifications, no drawn-out explanations, and definitely no falling into the trap of defending yourself. Toxic people love to twist words and create drama, so the less they have to work with, the better. One of the hardest parts of cutting off toxic ties is dealing with the guilt that often follows. You might feel like you're being cruel, like you're abandoning them, or like you owe them closure. But let's be clear, protecting yourself is not cruelty. Choosing your well-being is not abandonment. And closure? That's something you create for yourself, not something they can give you. In fact, many toxic people will use the idea of closure as a way to reel you back in, convincing you to meet up, talk things through, or hear their side one last time. But more often than not, that last conversation just turns into another cycle of manipulation. You don't owe them one last talk. You don't owe them anything. Another crucial part of this process is learning to say no and standing by it. Toxic relationships often leave you feeling like your needs and boundaries don't matter because over time, they were repeatedly ignored or pushed aside. You might have learned to give in just to keep the peace, or to put someone else's feelings above your own. Now it's time to unlearn that. Saying no is not selfish, it's self-respect. If they try to guilt trip you, manipulate you, or test your boundaries, recognize it for what it is and attempt to regain control. And you don't have to explain yourself. No is a complete sentence. Beyond the toxic person themselves, it's also important to evaluate the environment around you. Mutual friends, shared spaces, even certain habits or routines. If they keep pulling you back into a place that reminds you of them or exposes you to their influence, it might be time to make some changes. This doesn't mean cutting people off without reason, but it does mean being mindful of who supports your healing and who enables toxicity. Some friends or family members might pressure you to just move on or downplay what you went through, or others might continue relaying information about your ex, keeping you emotionally tied to the situation. Protecting your space might mean distancing yourself from those who don't respect your healing process. Another layer of setting boundaries is the internal work of breaking emotional ties. Even after cutting contact, the mental and emotional grip of a toxic relationship can linger. You might still hear their voice in your head, replay conversations, or struggle with the urge to reach out. This is normal, but it's also a sign that healing takes more than just physical distance. A powerful exercise is writing a letter to them that you never send. Spill out everything you want to say, the anger, the sadness, the disappointment, even the love you once felt. Then destroy it. Burn it, rip it up, throw it away. This isn't about them. It's about you making a conscious decision to release the hold they have on your mind. One day they might try to come back. Maybe they'll apologize. Maybe they'll act like nothing happened. Or maybe they'll lash out when they realize they no longer have control over you. Or don't fall for it. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your peace, to your growth, and to the life you are building without them. This is not easy work. Cutting off toxic ties and setting boundaries can feel lonely at first, and there will be moments where you doubt yourself. But every time you choose yourself over their influence, you reclaim a piece of your power. Every time you hold firm in your boundaries, you reinforce the truth that you deserve better. And every time you resist the pull to go back, you move one step closer to the freedom and healing you are fighting for. Rebuilding your self-worth and confidence after a toxic relationship is like piecing yourself back together, but this time stronger and more aware than ever before. When you've been in a relationship that constantly made you feel small, inadequate, or unworthy, it takes time to undo that damage. Toxic relationships have a way of stripping away your sense of identity. You might have spent so much time trying to be enough for someone else that you forgot who you were before they came into your life. But now, it's about rediscovering yourself, not as the person they shaped you into, but as the person you were always meant to be. The first thing to realize is that your self-worth was never actually lost. It was buried, hidden beneath the layers of self-doubt, criticism, and manipulation that you endured. But just because someone made you feel worthless does not mean you are. Their words, their actions, and their treatment of you do not define you. You were always enough. The problem was never you. It was the way they made you question yourself. One of the biggest lies a toxic relationship teaches you is that your value depends on someone else's approval. Maybe we're constantly seeking validation, adjusting your behavior to keep the peace, or bending over backward to gain their affection. But true confidence doesn't come from external validation. It comes from within. That means you have to stop looking for proof of your worth in other people's opinions and start recognizing it for yourself. A powerful way to do this is by taking control of your internal dialogue. Pay attention to how you speak to yourself. If you've been conditioned to believe you're not good enough, your inner voice might have absorbed that negativity. You might catch yourself thinking, I'm not lovable, I'm not strong enough, I'm not worthy of happiness. Those thoughts aren't facts. They're just remnants of someone else's influence. And the good news? You can rewrite them. Start replacing self-criticism with self-compassion. When negative thoughts creep in, challenge them. Ask yourself, would I say this to a friend? If the answer is no, then why say it to yourself? Rebuilding self-worth also means reconnecting with what makes you, you. Toxic relationships often make you lose touch with your own interests, passions, and desires because so much of your energy was focused on the other person. Now is the time to rediscover what lights you up. What did you love before that relationship? What hobbies, dreams, or goals did you put on hold? Or start exploring again, whether it's music, art, fitness, travel, or learning something new. The more you invest in yourself, the more you reinforce the message that you matter. Confidence isn't something that magically appears overnight. It's built through action. Every time you step outside of your comfort zone, every time you set a boundary, every time you prove to yourself that you can handle life on your own terms, you strengthen your belief in yourself. One of the best ways to rebuild confidence is by keeping small promises to yourself. If you say you're going to do something, whether it's waking up early, eating healthier, or starting a new habit, follow through. Keeping commitments to yourself builds trust within. It tells your mind, I can count on myself. And that's powerful. Another key part of rebuilding self-worth is surrounding yourself with people who uplift you. Toxic relationships often isolate you, whether intentionally or unintentionally. You might have lost touch with friends or family members, or maybe you felt like no one truly understood what you were going through. Now is the time to rebuild your support system. Spend time with people who make you feel valued and respected. If your circle is small, that's okay. Quality matters more than quantity. And if you don't have a strong support system right now, seek out new connections. Join a group, take a class, or even find online communities where you can connect with like-minded people. Healing also involves forgiving yourself, not for the relationship, but for the ways you may have abandoned yourself in the process. You might look back and wonder why you stayed so long, why you ignored red flags, or why you allowed certain behaviors. But self-blame has no place in your healing journey. You did the best you could with the knowledge and strength you had at the time. Now, with what you know, you can choose differently moving forward. There will be days when you feel strong and confident, and there will be days when the doubt creeps back in. That's part of the process. But every step you take toward rebuilding your self-worth is a step away from the version of you that was controlled by someone else's opinions. You are not who they said you were. You are not defined by your past. You are capable, worthy, and deserving of happiness, not because someone else says so, but because it has always been true. The journey back to yourself might take time, but every effort you make is proof that you are already on your way. Shifting your mindset from victim to victor is one of the most powerful transformations you can make after leaving a toxic relationship. It's the difference between staying stuck in the pain of what happened and using that pain as fuel to rebuild yourself stronger than ever. It doesn't mean ignoring the hurt or pretending everything is fine. It means taking back control over your life, your thoughts, and your future. When you've been in a toxic relationship, it's easy to fall into a victim mentality. You were hurt, manipulated, and mistreated, and none of that was your fault. But staying in that mindset, replaying the pain, focusing on what was taken from you, and seeing yourself as broken keeps you trapped in the past. The truth is, you are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what you do next. Choosing to see yourself as a victor means recognizing that while you couldn't control how someone treated you, you can control how you respond to it now. The first step in this shift is recognizing your own power. A toxic relationship often makes you feel powerless, like your happiness, self-worth, and decisions were dictated by someone else. That feeling doesn't just disappear when the relationship ends, it lingers. You might still find yourself doubting your choices, waiting for someone else's approval, or feeling like life is happening to you rather than because of you. But the truth is, you've always had power. It was just buried under fear, doubt, and conditioning. Now, it's time to take it back. One of the biggest mindset shifts is moving from, why did this happen to me, to what can I learn from this? Victim mentality keeps you stuck in the why. Why did they treat me this way? Why didn't they love me enough? Why did I stay so long? These questions, while understandable, don't lead to growth. Instead, they keep you trapped in a cycle of blame and regret. The victor mindset, on the other hand, focuses on what's next. What did this experience teach me about myself? What red flags will I never ignore again? What kind of love do I truly deserve? When you start asking better questions, you get better answers. Another crucial part of shifting your mindset is releasing the idea that healing is about getting closure from the person who hurt you. Many people stay stuck because they're waiting for an apology, an explanation, or some kind of acknowledgement that they were wronged. But closure isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you create for yourself. The real closure comes when you decide that their actions no longer have control over your emotions. It comes when you stop looking for validation from the person who broke you and start giving it to yourself. Taking responsibility for your healing is another key element of shifting from victim to victor. This doesn't mean blaming yourself for what happened. It means acknowledging that you are the only one who can change your future. No one is coming to save you. And as harsh as that sounds, it's actually empowering. Because it means you have the power to rebuild. The past is set in stone, but your future is still in your hands. Every small decision you make, whether it's setting a boundary, working on your self-esteem, or choosing not to engage with toxic people, is a step toward victory. One of the most powerful things you can do to shift your mindset is to reframe your past experiences. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who was damaged by a toxic relationship, start seeing yourself as someone who survived it. You endured something incredibly difficult, and yet here you are, still standing, still fighting, still capable of creating a beautiful life. That's not weakness, that's resilience. That's proof of your strength. It's also important to challenge the limiting beliefs that were planted in your mind during the relationship. Toxic people have a way of making you feel like you're not good enough, not lovable, or incapable of doing things on your own. If those thoughts still creep in, recognize that they are not your thoughts. They were someone else's projections. You do not have to carry them anymore. Instead, replace them with affirmations that reinforce your new mindset. I am strong. I am worthy. I am in control of my life. I am enough as I am. The more you repeat these truths, the more they become part of your reality. Shifting from victim to victor is also about taking action. Healing isn't just about thinking differently, it's about doing differently. If you spent months or years in a toxic dynamic that made you feel small, now is the time to expand. Try new things, take on new challenges, prove to yourself that you are capable and independent. Every time you step outside of your comfort zone, you reinforce the idea that you are in charge of your own life. Understand that being a victor doesn't mean you won't have setbacks. Healing is not a straight line. Some days you'll feel strong and unstoppable. Other days the pain might sneak back in. But the difference is a victim sees setbacks as proof that they're still broken, while a victor sees them as just another part of the journey. The goal isn't to never struggle again. It's to get better at picking yourself up when you do. Letting go of resentment and forgiving, not for them, but for yourself, is one of the hardest yet most liberating steps in healing after a toxic relationship. When someone has hurt you deeply, betrayed your trust, or made you feel small, it's natural to hold on to anger. Resentment feels like a form of justice, like a way to keep yourself protected from ever being hurt again. But the truth is, carrying that weight does not punish them. It only punishes you. Resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It keeps you mentally and emotionally tied to someone who no longer deserves space in your life. Every time you replay what they did, every time you let your mind spiral into the unfairness of it all, you're giving them power over you all over again. And they don't even have to be present to do it. Your anger, though justified, becomes a cage. The only way to truly free yourself is to let go. This does not mean excusing what they did. It does not mean pretending it didn't hurt or acting like it was okay. Forgiveness is not about them. It's about releasing yourself from the grip of their actions. It's about saying, I refuse to let what you did continue to control my life. It's a decision to take your power back. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to let go of resentment is because they think it means letting the other person win, as if forgiving them erases the pain they caused or allows them to escape accountability. But forgiveness is not weakness, it's strength. It takes courage to move forward rather than stay stuck in bitterness. And accountability, that's on them, not you. They may never acknowledge what they did. They may never change. But that doesn't mean you have to keep carrying their actions with you. Letting go is also difficult because pain has a way of becoming familiar. If you've spent months or years in anger, hurt, or resentment, it can feel like a part of your identity. You may feel like if you let go, you're somehow betraying yourself, like you're erasing your own suffering. But holding onto pain doesn't validate your experience, it prolongs it. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to live in that chapter anymore. A powerful way to release resentment is through self-reflection. Ask yourself, what is holding me back from letting go? Is it the need for an apology, the fear that if you move on, it means what happened didn't matter, the belief that anger keeps you safe? Understanding what's keeping you stuck helps you take steps to free yourself. Writing can also be a powerful tool. Try writing a letter to them, not to send, but for yourself. Pour out everything you've been holding in, every hurt, every betrayal, every disappointment. Say everything you never got to say, and then destroy it. Burn it, shred it, let it go in a way that symbolizes releasing it from your heart. This isn't about making them hear you, it's about making peace with yourself. Another step in letting go is shifting your focus. The more time you spend dwelling on what happened, the less time you spend creating a future that excites you. Instead of focusing on the past, ask yourself, what do I want for my life now? Pour your energy into things that bring you joy, new experiences, and self-growth. The more you focus on what you are building, the less space resentment has to grow. Forgiving yourself is also part of this process. Many people hold on to resentment, not just toward the person who hurt them, but toward themselves. You might feel angry for not seeing the red flags, for staying too long, for allowing yourself to be treated a certain way. But self-blame has no place in your healing journey. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Be kind to yourself. Healing isn't about punishing yourself for the past. It's about learning from it and moving forward with wisdom. There will be moments when resentment creeps back in. A memory, a song, a place, or even just an idle thought can bring back the anger. That's normal. The key is not to let those moments define you. When those feelings arise, acknowledge them, but don't dwell in them. Remind yourself why you're choosing to let go. Letting go of resentment and forgiving doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. Some days it will feel easier than others. But with each step you take, you lighten the load. You make space for peace, for happiness, for a life that is no longer controlled by past pain. And that is the greatest freedom of all. Establishing healthy boundaries is one of the most important steps in healing after a toxic relationship. When you've been in a situation where your boundaries were ignored, manipulated, or broken repeatedly, it can be difficult to even recognize what healthy boundaries look like. You may have been conditioned to believe that setting limits is selfish, that saying no makes you unlovable, or that your needs don't matter. But the truth is, boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are the guidelines that teach people how to treat you. They are an act of self-respect, and they are essential to building a life where you feel safe, valued, and in control. One of the first steps in establishing boundaries is recognizing what went wrong in your past relationship. Think back to the moments when you felt disrespected, unheard, or emotionally drained. Were you constantly sacrificing your own needs to avoid conflict? Did you feel guilty for speaking up? Did you tolerate behavior that made you uncomfortable because you were afraid of losing the person? These patterns are clues that point to where your boundaries were weak or non-existent. Now it's time to rebuild them, stronger, clearer, and with a firm belief that you deserve to have them respected. Healthy boundaries. Start with knowing yourself, your values, your limits, and what you are no longer willing to tolerate. This means identifying your emotional, physical, and mental needs, and then making a commitment to honor them. For example, you realize that in your past relationship, you allowed your partner to invade your personal space, dismiss your feelings, or control your time. You can now establish clear rules about how you expect to be treated moving forward. The next step is learning to communicate your boundaries effectively. Many people struggle with this because they fear confrontation or rejection. But setting boundaries is not about controlling others. It's about expressing your needs with confidence. Instead of apologizing for having boundaries, own them. Instead of saying, "I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable with this," say, "I don't feel comfortable with this and I need it to change." Clarity is key. The more direct and specific you are, the less room there is for misunderstanding or manipulation. It's also important to remember that enforcing boundaries is just as crucial as setting them. A boundary that isn't upheld is just a suggestion. If someone repeatedly crosses a line you've drawn, you must be willing to take action. This doesn't mean you have to be aggressive or cold. It means you stand firm in your decision. If someone disrespects your time, you don't keep giving them more of it. If someone dismisses your feelings, you don't continue explaining yourself to them. Your actions should align with your words. One of the hardest parts of setting boundaries is dealing with the pushback. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries will resist when you start enforcing them. They may try to guilt trip you, manipulate you, or accuse you of being selfish. This is especially true if you were in a toxic relationship where the other person was used to having control over you. But remember, just because someone is upset by your boundaries doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're doing something different. And different is exactly what you need to break free from unhealthy patterns. A crucial part of boundary setting is also learning to trust yourself. In a toxic relationship, you may have been gaslighted into doubting your own feelings, making you question whether your boundaries were even valid, but your feelings are always valid. If something makes you uncomfortable, you don't need to justify it. If someone crosses a line, you don't need to explain why it bothers you in a way that convinces them. Trust your instincts. You don't owe anyone permission to respect you. Another aspect of healthy boundaries is knowing when to walk away. Not everyone will respect your limits, and that's okay. You don't have to fight for respect where it isn't given willingly. If someone continually disregards your boundaries despite your clear communication, they are showing you that they do not value your well-being. That is your cue to distance yourself. Choosing to step away from toxic relationships, whether romantic, friendship, or even family, is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-care. Boundaries also apply to yourself. Self-boundaries mean holding yourself accountable for not falling back into old patterns. It means recognizing when you're overextending yourself, when you're people-pleasing, or when you're allowing someone to take more than they give. It's about making a promise to yourself that you will no longer betray your own needs just to keep others happy. As you start living with stronger boundaries, you will notice a shift in your life. You will attract healthier relationships because you are showing people how you expect to be treated. You will feel more confident because you are prioritizing your well-being. You will experience less stress and resentment because you are no longer allowing others to drain your energy. And most importantly, you will learn that you don't have to sacrifice parts of yourself to be loved. The right people, the ones who truly care about you, will respect your boundaries without question. Setting and maintaining boundaries is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice. There will be moments when you struggle, when you second-guess yourself, or when you feel tempted to let things slide. But every time you choose to stand firm, you are reinforcing your self-worth. You are proving to yourself that you are no longer the person who accepts less than they deserve. You are stepping into your power, reclaiming your life, and creating a future where you are no longer defined by the past. And that is the greatest victory of all. Healing after a toxic relationship is not just about moving on. It's about reclaiming your life, your power, and your sense of self. It's about breaking free from the patterns that kept you stuck, learning to trust yourself again, and building a future where you are no longer defined by what happened to you. The road to healing isn't always easy, and there will be moments when the past tries to pull you back in. But every step you take, whether it's shifting your mindset, letting go of resentment, or setting stronger boundaries, is a declaration that you refuse to let your past dictate your future. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are a survivor, a fighter, and someone who is capable of creating a life filled with peace, love, and respect. The most powerful thing you can do for yourself is to keep moving forward. Keep choosing yourself. Keep believing that you are worthy of a love that does not require you to suffer. And most importantly, never forget that healing is not about waiting for time to fix you. It's about taking action to build the life you deserve. The person you are becoming is stronger than the person you were before, and that is your victory.